think my walk-on music was a lot shorter than I anticipated. Thank you, Tisha. Thank you, Heather. Thank everybody here for being here. I think I want to fill in the gap on a couple of things first. And I got to give you all full disclosure. I did not know what I was really getting myself into when I started to take and participate in this project. But I thank God that I did, because it opened up my eyes to a lot of things dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I need to get from around this podium. And to be honest with you, it's been a humbling experience. And so part of my experience has been in special education. I've done a little bit of everything. Good, not so good. But it all comes back full circle. So many of you all probably have been in your lives, in your life experiences, you've probably been in situations where you probably canned or probably heard these phrases of DEI. But I want to just give you guys a couple of points in regards to time. We happen to live in a world, I'm actually segueing into my actual speech. We actually live in a world where we're often told that you're special, right? Has anybody heard that before? Okay, so you hear this in society all the time. You know, we have sports where everybody gets participation trophies, right? That's the big thing now. We don't like a whole lot of competition. We're told that we're enough. We don't want to body shame. We don't want to judge people. We don't want to send any ripples in the waters or anything like that as a society, right? Because we have this passive stance on making anybody feel other than special, right? But what if I told you that secretly those words are quietly destroying us? And here's what I'm saying. Because most people who think they're special, and in fact, I have a shirt that I often work out in, it says, I'm not special, I'm exceptional. And the reason being is because what you gotta understand is that people who are exceptional, people who are led to change, people who are led to transformation, it's based off of purpose. It's based off of purpose, it's based off of challenge, it's even based off of the struggle in the process. When we're all special, and those of you who may have kids probably saw the movie The Incredibles, right? The villain was actually right. He said, when everybody has superpowers, there are no more superheroes. And I'm paraphrasing. Because everybody can't be special, because special only presents itself as, I'm only set apart based off of my presence. There's no value or there's no incentive to being here. There's no value or there's no incentive to us making the world a better place, right? And so the reason why I say that is because, has anybody heard of Dr. Calhoun in Universe 25? By a show of hands. By your silence, I'm going to assume that y'all haven't. All right, so back in the 60s and 70s, this gentleman did a social experiment with mice. And what these mice were doing, he created the perfect utopia. And I want you all to think about this. He created the perfect utopia where they had more than enough to eat. They had nesting areas. They had enough water. They had everything that they can possibly need within their habitat, right? And what wound up happening was, as a result, over time, the society collapsed. Not because, and I'm shortening this, not because that they didn't have an abundance of resources. It was because they lacked purpose. Hence, this is how you know. What wound up happening is, in the beginning, having all the resources, having all the food, having all the water, no predators available, right? So there was no threats to their livelihood. They thrived initially. The males eventually became either withdrawn or they wound up becoming hyper aggressive. Another show of hands. Does anybody consider themselves a beautiful one? Have you heard that? You're beautiful. You're special, right? So within this particular society, Universe 25, there was a group that emerged called the beautiful ones. They were well groomed, they were healthy, but they were disconnected from the rest of society. So mating between male and females diminished, right? Then it became stagnant to where eventually the population died off. Not because of resources, but because of purpose. And so when we look at DEI, we got to understand what kind of society would enable people to continuously have all the resources or entitlements that they think they need, while yet lacking the basic skill of interconnectedness. Because we're all created to be relational. Y'all knew that, right? All right. So because we're relational, think about our society today. Think about our kids. In fact, look at my child now. We have kids that have such an abundance of information right now. There's a heightened sense of anxiety. There's more of a need for them to be disconnected from the next person. Most kids nowadays probably don't know the greeting of the day or whether or not they have time. In DEI, what I found out on this journey with Dr. Robinson and the rest of the speakers was that DEI is not simply just leveling the playing field. It's not just simply giving jobs, or it's not just a remarketed version of affirmative action. It's a lot more than that. DEI means we cannot have a homogenous society or homogenous train of thought, that hive mentality of certain groups. We have to have diverse opinions. We have to agree to disagree. We can't be on certain platforms and say, because I disagree with you, you're wrong. Or because of my opinion, it's absolute. Most people don't understand this, but most of us have a keyhole perspective to life anyway. And so if I have a keyhole perspective to life, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna just use Chris here, right? And Chris has a keyhole perspective to life. It should benefit us both if we put our keyholes together to be able to create a larger picture. That's what the diversity is for in DEI. The equity comes with our faults, our flaws. And some of us, I heard it earlier, some of us may go to church, we may have some type of place of worship. We understand that our flaws is what makes us unique, not special. Mm-hmm. Jesus didn't hang with the special. He was around the unique. He was around the sinners. He was around the prostitutes, the tax collectors. He didn't need everybody to be the same. Right? So, the next thing I want to point out is, with the equity means what we're going to do is open up the doors to create a larger room for everybody to have a voice. Equity doesn't mean giving everybody the same thing. You know, in the church they say favor ain't fair. In some churches they do, right? Favor ain't fair. So equity in this particular case means that I'm going to give you exactly what you need versus what you want. What we all want is probably $1 million and not to have to work again. But then that's counterproductive and counterintuitive, right? If we were to all get $1 million right now, it would be fun for a moment. But at some point, you'll still be searching for purpose. So the last part is the inclusion. The inclusion is this. It is not that we have to accept everybody's differences. The inclusion is simply saying, I hear your story, I honor that story, and we can agree to disagree, but at the same time, I love you enough to let you know that, hey, we're in this together. We will fight and we will build together. And so when you understand this, my background is in special ed, right? But I've done a little bit of everything. And so one of the things that you're finding is that it's a lot easier for society to control emotionally dysregulated, overly sensitive and offended people, ill-informed people who are disconnected from the larger picture, right? I say this, and it's not a running joke, but I guess it kind of is. For those of you who believe in God and the devil, right? You're not the devil's enemy. I need you to understand this. A lot of people think, well, the devil is testing me. He don't need to test you. He don't like you enough to test you. But I will say this. What he's doing is he's separating you from your purpose so that you can justify why you don't grow, why you can't become a better benefit to anybody else. And that's what his whole purpose is. Anything that's going to distract you, anything that's going to keep you numb or desensitized to the emotional appeal of the world, right? Because we got reality television, we have TikToks, and we have all these different things socially where kids can probably tweet 30 words a minute, but can't write a sentence, right? If you ask a child right now, most school-age children, if you ask them to sign their name, half of the time you'll probably see more capital letters than lowercase letters in their name, right? And it's all in print, and it all looks terrible, you know. There is a pattern that we have to be aware of as educators, and education, in a sense, just simply means to draw out, to take the nature of drawing out of you. You have to understand it is our responsibility. And I told this to a parent in a meeting because she felt empowered in stating what her credentials are, right? And I've heard this, and I appreciate this expression when I heard it given to me. Titles are for books. When it's all said and done, nobody's going to care. So when we talk about true DEI, we're talking about the fact that we can sit in a room like this and develop dialogue to get closer to the finish line, to where we can become better people, better human beings, to where if the only task we're supposed to have is to love one another, or in one of my favorite books, feed my sheep, right? What that means is that what you come with is so valuable that it will be a disappointment that you died with it. That what you have is so valuable that it's not yours to keep. It's not yours to hoard. And so I say this, and I got to use my own story, is that when I was looking at this book, and when we were going over this book, I was saying, okay, this is just affirmative action. This is just people just wanting to get new jobs and things like that. But it's a lot more than that. This is not a political stance of any sort. This is a moral obligation. And I don't think people really understand it, because the sound bites don't allow us to understand that this is your moral obligation. Your moral obligation is connected to your relationship with not just each other, but to the person that you serve, the master that you serve. Me as a Christian, I'm gonna tell you, my Lord and Master is Jesus Christ. And so I say that not to boast about anything. I say that is because if people are truly serious about this, then what we have to do is we have to not only encourage one another, but we have to make it so that we challenge one another. Because true DEI is accountability. True DEI is reproof with love, correction with love, right? True DEI is understanding what is our next step, and that we don't have to subscribe to the fact that the rest of the world, or these different pockets, or these different groups want you to be this homogenous single hive mind of what we consider success, or academic, or, because then what we do is we wind up marginalizing it down to certain parameters. Things like racism, sexism, classism, ageism, even. All your different isms and schisms, right? So when we understand that, as we understand that with DEI, one of the things we have to focus on and make continuous strides on is the fact that we have to not only transform to lead, but we have to restructure how we include people and create that equity to where everybody is valued the same, regardless of whether we disagree or agree with each other or not. Thank you.